The small human ship appeared at the edge of Kashari space for the first time on a Tuesday morning. The vessel was barely larger than a transport pod, painted white with blue markings that identified it as a diplomatic craft. Inside sat Taemin Kim, a human who had spent 3 months traveling to reach this forbidden border. The Kashari Empire had closed its borders 50 years ago. Every species in the galaxy knew this. Every species respected it. Every species except this one human. Apparently, Tae-Min pressed the transmission button and spoke clearly into his communications array. This is Taemin Kim of Earth, representing the Galactic Health Coalition. I request an audience with Queen Valera of the Kashari Empire. The matter is urgent and concerns the well-being of multiple species across the quadrant. Silence answered him. The kind of silence that stretched across empty space like a wall. He waited for 6 hours. Then he sent the message again. And again. By the end of the day, he had transmitted his request 17 times. On the 18th attempt, something finally responded. 3 massive Kashari warships materialized from the darkness, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. They were beautiful and terrifying at once, like deep-sea creatures evolved for war. A harsh voice crackled through his speakers. The translation matrix converted the clicking, humming language into words he could understand. Human vessel. You are in restricted territory. Turn back immediately or be destroyed. Taemin smiled, even though no one could see him. I understand your concern, but I really do need to speak with Queen Valera. It will only take a few minutes of her time. Turn back. Now. I've come a very long way, Taemin said reasonably. 3 months of travel. Surely someone can spare just a moment to hear why. The warships powered their weapons. Energy crackled along their organic cannons. Taemin sighed and reversed his thrusters. All right. I'm leaving, but I'll be back tomorrow. The Kashari officer didn't respond. They simply watched as the tiny human ship turned and flew back across the border. True to his word, Taemin returned the next morning. Same position, same message, same request for an audience. The warships escorted him out again. He came back the day after that. And the day after that. For 2 weeks, the pattern repeated. Taemin would arrive, transmit his polite request, wait patiently for hours, get threatened, and leave when the weapons powered up. Then he would return the following day. Deep within the massive hive ship that served as her mobile throne, Queen Valera watched the reports with growing irritation. She stood 12 feet tall, her chitinous body covered in plates that shimmered between purple and black. 4 arms crossed over her chest as she stared at the view screen showing the persistent human vessel. He's back again. My queen, her military commander reported, his mandibles clicking with annoyance. I can see that, Valera hissed. Her voice carried harmonics that made the air vibrate. Why haven't you destroyed him? He retreats before we fire. He never actually crosses into our territory, just sits at the exact border. Technically, he violates no law we can enforce. The queen's inner eyelids flickered with anger. Then ignore him. Eventually, he will tire of this foolishness and leave permanently. But Taemin did not leave permanently. Week 3 began with him still there, still sending his polite requests, still waiting with what seemed like infinite patience. The Kashari patrols began to recognize his ship. Some of the younger warriors started making bets on what time he would arrive each day. By week 4, Queen Valera's patience shattered like crystal. Open a channel to that insufferable creature, she commanded. Her communications officer hesitated. My queen, we have maintained silence for 50 years. To break it now for one human. Open the channel. The officer obeyed. Moments later, Taemin's face appeared on the screen. He was younger than Valera expected, with dark hair and warm eyes that showed no fear. He actually smiled when he saw her. "Queen Valera, thank you for speaking with me. I know you're very busy, so I'll be brief. What do you want? Human?" The Queen's voice thundered through the speakers. "Why won't you leave us in peace? My people wish no contact with the outside galaxy. We have made this abundantly clear for half a century. What part of our isolation do you fail to comprehend?" Taemin's smile faded, but his voice remained calm. "I understand completely, Your Majesty, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't a matter of life and death. A plague has begun spreading through the quadrant. It's already killed billions. We've analyzed your species' biology from old records, and we believe you may be immune. You might hold the key to saving countless lives. That is not my concern. I know you don't owe us anything. You know nothing, human." Valera leaned toward the screen, all four arms spreading wide. "You know nothing of why we isolated ourselves. Nothing of what your precious galactic community did to us. Nothing of the betrayals, the exploitation, the experiments performed on my ancestors. We owe the galaxy less than nothing. We owe it our contempt and our absence." Taemin absorbed this quietly. Then he nodded. "You're right. I don't know your history, but I do know that people are dying. Children, families, entire worlds going dark. If there's even a chance you could help, I have to ask. I have to try. Then you have tried and failed. Now go. Do not return." The transmission ended abruptly. Taemin sat alone in his small ship, staring at the blank screen. Then he pulled out his personal log and began recording notes about the conversation. Details about the Queen's words, her pain, her anger. The next morning, his ship appeared at the border again. Queen Valera stared at the report in disbelief. "He came back? After I specifically ordered him to leave permanently?" "Yes, my queen. He's transmitting again." "Same message?" "Requests an audience to discuss the plague." For a long moment, the Queen said nothing. Then she began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. It carried the edge of true fury, the kind that could break worlds. "This human," she said softly, dangerously, "is going to learn what happens to those who ignore a queen's command." Taemin did not simply keep showing up with the same request. He changed his approach. Each morning, when he arrived at the border, he transmitted detailed data instead of asking for meetings. Medical reports, death counts, images of hospitals overflowing with the sick, videos of children struggling to breathe as the plague attacked their lungs. He never editorialized. He never begged. He just sent the facts and waited. Queen Valera tried to ignore the transmissions. She ordered her communications officers to delete them unread. But the officers had seen the data before deleting it. Word spread through the hive ship. The Kashari might have isolated themselves from the galaxy, but they were not cruel. The images of suffering troubled many of them. On the 32nd day, Taemin's ship was joined by a second vessel. This one carried a woman named Hannah Park, a human scientist who specialized in xenobiology. Together, they began constructing a small station at the border. Nothing military, just a research outpost with living quarters, a laboratory, and powerful communications equipment. The Kashari fleet surrounded the construction site. Weapons trained on the humans as they worked. "You are still in violation of our borders," the Kashari commander transmitted. "We're exactly 0.003 degrees outside your border." Hana responded, checking her instruments. "Technically, we're in neutral space. We have every right to be here. Leave, now." "Can't do that," Taemin said cheerfully, helping Hannah secure a solar panel. "We have work to do." When the station was complete, the two humans settled in. Every day, Taemin sent his reports. The plague was spreading faster now. It had reached the Tholian Confederacy. 17 billion dead in the last month alone. The mineral collective's crystal-based species were dying so quickly their entire civilization faced extinction. Hana sent scientific data, genetic sequences of the plague, analysis of how it attacked different biology types, models showing why Kashari physiology might hold resistance factors. "We're not asking you to give us samples," her messages explained. "We're not asking you to let us study your people. We just need guidance, a direction to research, anything that might help us understand resistance mechanisms." Queen Valera read every message now, though she would never admit it. Her inner circle noticed the change. The Queen, who had once refused all outside contact, now spent hours reviewing human data. "They're manipulating you," her chief advisor warned. "This is how it starts. First they make you care. Then they make you responsible. Then they exploit that responsibility." "I know their tactics," Valera snapped. But doubt gnawed at her. Were billions really dying? Or was this an elaborate scheme? She sent scouts to verify the information independently. They returned with confirmation that made her stomach turn. If anything, the humans had understated the crisis. The plague was worse than reported. Entire planets were going dark, their populations too decimated to maintain basic infrastructure. Still, she remained silent. Taemin and Hana continued their work. They established a routine. Mornings were for data compilation, afternoons for transmissions, evenings for maintaining their small station. They never complained about being ignored, never showed frustration. They simply persisted with calm determination. After 3 months, Queen Valera's patience broke again. She ordered her fleet to destroy the station. "My queen," the commander hesitated. "They're not in our territory. This would be an act of war against neutral space." "I don't care. Destroy it." The warships opened fire. Precisely targeted beams of energy tore through the small research station. Taemin and Hana barely made it to their ships before the structure exploded into debris. They retreated beyond weapon range and watched their work burn in the vacuum of space. "Wow," Hana said over the private channel. "That was unfortunate." "It was my fault," Taemin replied. "I pushed too hard. So what do we do now?" Taemin was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "We rebuild." "Taemin, she just destroyed our station. She's clearly not going to help." "Maybe not. But people are still dying. We keep trying until we literally can't anymore." 2 weeks later, a new station appeared at the border. Larger this time, better shielded. Taemin and Hana resumed their transmissions as if nothing had happened. Queen Valera stared at the reports in complete disbelief. "They rebuilt? After I destroyed their facility, they simply built another one?" "Yes, my queen. The new station has improved defensive systems. Destroying it would require significantly more firepower. Then use more firepower." But before the order could be executed, Taemin sent a direct transmission to the Queen's personal channel. His face appeared on her private screen, and for the first time, he looked tired. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I know you destroyed our station. I understand why. You want us to leave. You want to be alone. I respect that wish. I really do." Valera said nothing, but she didn't cut the transmission. "But I can't leave," Taemin continued. "Every day I delay, thousands more die. Yesterday, I got a message from a friend on Tellus 9. She has a daughter, 6 years old. She asked me if the cure was ready yet. I had to tell her no. This morning, she sent me another message. Her daughter died during the night." He paused, collecting himself. "You can destroy this station too. I'll build another. You can threaten me, chase me, shoot at me. I'll keep coming back. Not because I want to bother you, Not because I disrespect your wishes, but because giving up means more messages like the one I got this morning. Giving up means watching species go extinct when there might be a way to save them. You know nothing of what my people suffered. Valera roared, finally breaking her silence. The fury in her voice made the speakers crackle. We were betrayed, exploited. Scientists from dozens of species came to us with promises of friendship and left with pieces of our people in their laboratories. They dissected us, enslaved us, used our unique biology for their experiments. We were nearly driven to extinction by those who claimed to help us. I didn't know, Taemin said softly. I'm sorry that happened to you. Sorry? Sorry? Your apology means nothing. Your persistence means nothing. Why don't you understand? We want nothing from your galaxy. We owe you nothing. You're right. You don't owe us anything. Then leave. I can't. Queen Valera's scream of pure rage echoed through her throne chamber. All four arms slammed against her command console. Why don't you leave me alone, human? The words tore from her throat with 50 years of pain and isolation and fury behind them. Why won't you just go away? Taemin looked directly into the camera, and his voice when he spoke was gentle but unshakable. Because giving up on people we can save isn't something humans know how to do. The transmission ended. Queen Valera stood trembling with rage in her empty throne room, staring at the blank screen where the human's face had been, and she had absolutely no idea what to do about him. For 3 days after her outburst, Queen Valera refused to look at any messages from the border. She tried to focus on governing her people, on the routine matters of the Empire. But her mind kept returning to the humans' words. Humans don't know how to give up on people we can save. What arrogance. What presumption. As if humans were saviors instead of another opportunistic species, looking to exploit the vulnerable dot, except the human had not asked for samples, had not demanded access, had not threatened or manipulated. He had simply stayed, and stayed, and stayed. On the 4th day, Taemin sent another transmission. This time, it was not data or requests. It was a story. Your Majesty, his recorded message began. You told me I know nothing of suffering. You're right. I don't know your people's specific pain. But I do know something about humanity's capacity for cruelty. He proceeded to outline human history with brutal honesty. The conquests, the slavery, the genocides, the way humans had treated other humans throughout their evolution. We colonized and destroyed, Taemin said. We built empires on the backs of people we declared inferior. We created weapons that could end all life on our planet, and we very nearly used them. We have been, at various points in our history, absolutely terrible. Valera found herself listening despite her determination not to. But here's what else I know, Taemin continued. We learned. Slowly, painfully, with countless mistakes along the way, we learned. We're not perfect now. We still mess up. We still have people who choose cruelty. But we also have people who choose differently, who choose to be better than our worst moments. That's what I'm trying to do here. Not because humans are naturally good, but because we're capable of choosing good even when it's hard. The message ended with an offer that shocked the Queen. If you don't trust us with your people's biology, study mine instead. I'll volunteer for any tests you want. Take samples, run experiments, do whatever you need. If human physiology can give you any insights that might help, I offer it freely. Valera replayed the message 3 times. Then she opened a live channel. Tae-Min looked surprised when her face appeared on his screen. Your Majesty, I didn't expect. Be quiet and listen, human, she interrupted. Her voice carried less fury now, more weariness. You want to know why we isolated ourselves? I will tell you. She spoke for nearly an hour. She told him about the scientists who came with promises of cultural exchange, about how they had asked for simple tissue samples for comparative biology studies, about how those samples became involuntary harvests, about Kashari who disappeared and were found later in laboratories across the galaxy, kept alive in agony so their unique regenerative abilities could be studied. "We were peaceful," Valera said, her voice breaking slightly. "We welcomed contact with other species. We thought the galaxy was full of potential friends. We learned otherwise." "I'm sorry," Temin said. "Truly, no one should have experienced that. Your sorry changes nothing. It does not undo the past. It does not restore trust." "No," Temin agreed. "But maybe trust can be built differently this time. Not demanded. Not assumed. Earned." Before Valera could respond, an urgent transmission interrupted them. It came from Ji-Woo Lee, the human communications specialist working with Taemin's team. "Taemin, we have a problem. I intercepted encrypted military chatter. There's a radical human faction planning to raid Kashari space. They're planning to attack in 72 hours. They intend to capture Kashari citizens and forcibly extract genetic material for plague research." Taemin's face went pale. "Can you verify this?" "Already did. It's legitimate. A mercenary group funded by desperate planetary governments. They don't care about consent or diplomacy anymore. Too many people are dying." Valera heard every word through the open channel. Her body went rigid. "So, the truth reveals itself. This was all a distraction while your military prepared an assault." "No." Taemin looked horrified. "Your Majesty, I swear I knew nothing about this. This faction doesn't represent Earth or the Galactic Health Coalition. They're criminals acting on their own. Convenient timing for your confession." "I'm confessing because Ji-Woo told me the truth." Taemin's desperation was evident. "I could have hidden this information. I could have let the raid happen. But I'm not going to let anyone hurt your people, even if telling you destroys any chance of cooperation." He took a deep breath. "I'm sending you all the tactical data Ji-Woo intercepted. Ship positions, attack vectors, timing, everything. Prepare your defenses. And for what it's worth, my team will help if you'll let us." "Why would you fight your own kind?" Valera demanded. "Because they're wrong. Because what they're planning is exactly the kind of horror you described. I won't be part of that. I can't be part of that." The data packet arrived moments later. Valera's tactical officers confirmed its authenticity. The human mercenary fleet was indeed approaching, using routes that suggested inside knowledge of Kashari patrol patterns. Queen Valera made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. "Human, Taemin, if you truly wish to help, coordinate with my fleet commander. We will need your knowledge of human military tactics." The next 72 hours were chaos. Taemin and his colleague Hyan Woo Choi, a military advisor, worked alongside Kashari officers to plan the defense. The cultural barriers were enormous. Kashari communicated partially through pheromones that humans couldn't detect. Humans used idioms and metaphors that made no sense to Kashari, but they found ways to make it work. When the mercenary fleet arrived, they found themselves facing not just Kashari warships, but also the small human vessels fighting alongside them. Taemin's ship, barely armed, positioned itself between the attackers and the hive ship. Hannah's research vessel used its sensors to jam enemy targeting systems. Ji-Woo hacked into the mercenary communications and fed false intel that broke their formation. The battle was brief and decisive. The attackers had expected easy prey. They found coordinated resistance instead. 3 mercenary ships were destroyed. The rest fled. In the aftermath, Queen Valera stood on her command deck, watching the tactical display as Taemin's damaged ship limped back to the station. One of his engines was offline. His hull showed scorch marks from weapons fire. He positioned himself in front of us, her tactical officer reported. Deliberately. When the mercenaries targeted our primary vessel, his ship intercepted the attack. A human vessel cannot withstand that kind of firepower. No, my queen, it cannot. He knew that. Valera opened a channel to tame in. His face appeared, streaked with soot and sweat. Behind him, emergency systems flickered. You defended us, she said quietly. Against your own people. Not my people, Taemin corrected, coughing. My species, maybe. But not my people. My people are the ones who choose to protect, not harm. The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she said something she never thought she would say again to an outsider. Come aboard my ship, Taemin of Earth. It is time we spoke properly. The interior of the Kashari hive ship was unlike anything Taemin had seen before. The walls were organic, pulsing with bioluminescence that shifted from deep purple to soft blue. The corridors curved in patterns that reminded him of neural pathways, or perhaps the inside of a massive living organism. Hana walked beside him, her eyes wide with scientific fascination. The whole ship is grown, not built, she whispered. It's extraordinary. 2 Kashari guards escorted them through the winding passages. The aliens stood nearly 12 feet tall, their chitinous bodies clicking softly with each movement. Other Kashari stopped to stare at the humans, some with curiosity, many with suspicion or fear. Queen Valera had granted them limited access to a research facility deep within the ship. The laboratory was clean and sophisticated, filled with equipment that served similar purposes to human instruments, but looked completely alien in design. 3 Kashari scientists waited for them. They introduced themselves through the translation devices with names that came out as clicking sounds Taemin couldn't pronounce. The lead scientist, whose name translated roughly as she who seeks patterns, regarded Hana with cautious interest. You are the one who sent the genetic analysis? The scientist asked. Yes, Hana replied. I specialized in cross-species biology. I've studied 17 different alien physiologies. I promise to treat your data with complete respect and confidentiality. Promises, another scientist muttered. We have heard such promises before. Hana met their compound eyes steadily. I know, and I know words mean little after you've been betrayed. So I won't make grand speeches. I'll just work. Judge me by my actions. Over the following weeks, a cautious collaboration developed. Hana worked alongside the Kashari scientists, carefully explaining every step of her process. She never touched equipment without permission, never accessed data without explicit consent. When she made mistakes in Kashari scientific terminology, she apologized and asked for correction. Slowly, the scientists began to warm to her. She who seeks patterns began explaining the unique aspects of Kashari biology without being asked. They shared meals in the laboratory, with Hana gamely trying Kashari nutritional paste while the scientists sampled human protein bars with mixed results. Meanwhile, Taemin found himself with more freedom to explore. The Queen had not granted him full access to the ship, but no one stopped him from wandering the permitted areas. He spent hours observing Kashari daily life. He sat in their common spaces, watching families interact. He learned basic greetings in their clicking language. He helped repair damaged sections of the ship left over from the battle, working alongside Kashari engineers who regarded him with confusion. Why do you help? One engineer asked. This is not your vessel. You defended my friends during the fight, Taemin replied, carefully sealing a damaged wall panel. Seems only fair I help with repairs. Word spread about the strange human who helped without being asked. Kashari began approaching him with curiosity instead of hostility. They asked about Earth, about human culture, about why he had been so persistent. Don't you tire of being rejected? A young Kashari asked him one day. Sometimes, Taman admitted. But persistence isn't about never getting tired. It's about continuing even when you are tired. Queen Valiera observed all of this from her throne chamber. Her advisors brought her regular reports on the humans' activities. Hana's respectful collaboration. Taman's cultural integration. Their genuine interest in Kashari society rather than just Kashari biology. He sits with the injured from the battle, her chief advisor reported. He cannot communicate well with them, but he sits anyway. Yesterday, he learned one of our morning songs. Poorly, but he learned it. Why? Valera asked. I do not know, my queen. Perhaps you should ask him. She found Taman in one of the garden chambers, a large space where bioluminescent plants grew in carefully tended spirals. He sat on a bench, attempting to hum a Kashari melody. He was indeed terrible at it. You are murdering that song, Valiera said. Te-Min jumped, then smiled when he saw her. I know. Human vocal cords aren't designed for your harmonics. But I wanted to try. Why do you care so much? The question came out before she could stop it. About our songs, our culture, our people. You came for medical help. That does not require learning our music. Taemin considered the question seriously. Because isolation is death by another name, he said finally. Maybe not physical death, the death of connection, of growth, of sharing what makes each species unique. Everyone deserves connection, Your Majesty. Your people have been alone for 50 years. That's long enough. Before Valiera could respond, Hana burst into the garden chamber, excitement evident on her face. We found it! The resistance mechanism. It's a specific enzyme chain in Kashari cellular structure. We can synthesize a cure. That is excellent news, Valiera said carefully. Hana's excitement dimmed. There's a complication. To properly map the enzyme chain and create a stable synthesis, we need voluntary biological donations from multiple Kashari. Not much, just tissue samples. But we need them. The room went cold. Valera's body language shifted to defensive. Samples. Of course. It always comes down to samples. We can only proceed with explicit consent, Hana said firmly. We won't take anything without permission. If you say no, we respect that decision. But billions will die, Valera said bitterly. Yes, and that's tragic. But forcing you to help would make us no better than those who hurt you before. The choice has to be yours. The news spread through the hive ship rapidly. Kashari gathered in common areas, debating fiercely. The older generation, those who remembered the betrayals, were adamantly opposed. The younger Kashari, those who had only known isolation, were conflicted. Taemin requested permission to address the Kashari people. Valera granted it, curious what he would say. He stood in the central chamber, surrounded by thousands of Kashari. His voice, amplified by the ship systems, carried to every corner. I'm going to tell you about my species' history, he began. And it's not pretty. He spoke of colonization, of how humans had traveled to other continents on Earth and declared the people there inferior, how they had enslaved them, exploited them, destroyed their cultures. He spoke of medical experiments performed without consent, of atrocities committed in the name of progress. We did terrible things, Taemin said quietly, things that mirror what was done to you. And for a long time, we told ourselves it was acceptable because we were. Advancing knowledge or civilization or whatever excuse we invented. The Kashari listened in silence. But some humans looked at that history and said, never again. They fought to change, to build systems of consent and ethics, to make amends where possible. It didn't happen overnight. It's still not perfect. But we learned that progress built on exploitation isn't progress at all. It's just cruelty with a scientific label. He looked around at the assembled Kashari. I'm not asking you to trust humans. I'm asking you to trust yourselves. You have the power here. You make the choice. Whatever you decide, we'll respect it. That's what actual ethics looks like. Not taking, asking, and accepting no as a complete answer. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a young Kashari stepped forward. I will donate, she said. Not for humans. For the billions of other species dying who never heard us. Another young Kashari joined her. Then another. Within an hour, 50 volunteers had stepped forward. More than enough for the research. The cure was developed over the next month. Hannah and the Kashari scientists worked together, with Taemin often bringing them food and encouraging them through the long hours. When the final synthesis was complete and successfully tested, the laboratory erupted in celebration that crossed species barriers. Queen Valera watched Taemin embrace Hannah in victory, watched the Kashari scientists clicking their joy, and felt something she had not felt in 50 years. Hope. The painful, dangerous kind of hope that required trusting someone besides herself. 6 months after the cure was distributed across the galaxy, Queen Valera stood in a place she never thought she would visit again. The Galactic Council Chamber was a massive spherical room designed to accommodate hundreds of species. Delegates floated, swam, stood, or clung to surfaces depending on their biology. Holograms represented species too large or too small to attend physically. Beside the Queen stood Taemin, looking somewhat uncomfortable in formal diplomatic attire. He tugged at his collar and whispered, "Do I really have to be here?" "You're the important one. You are the reason I am here at all," Valera replied. "Stop fidgeting. You look like a hatchling." The council speaker, a floating gaseous being whose voice emanated from a translation sphere, addressed the assembly. "We gather today to formally welcome the Kashari Empire back into galactic society. For 50 years, they maintained isolation. Today, they rejoin us. We also recognize the efforts that made this reconciliation possible." Delegates from dozens of species turned their various sensory organs toward Valera and Taemin. The Tholian ambassador, a crystalline being still recovering from near extinction, spoke first. "The Kashari cure saved 17 billion of my people. We owe them a debt beyond measure. But I confess confusion. Many species attempted contact with the Kashari over the decades. All were refused. How did humanity succeed where we failed?" Another delegate, aquatic species whose tank bubbled with agitation, added, "We sent our finest diplomats. We offered technology, resources, cultural exchanges. All rejected. What did humans offer that we did not?" Taemin looked uncomfortable with the attention. "We didn't really offer anything special. We just asked. A lot. And kept asking. There must be more to it than that," the Tholian insisted. "There isn't." Hannah spoke up from the human delegation area. Taemin showed up at their border every single day for months. Got threatened. Left. Came back the next day. They blew up our research station. We built another one. There was no secret strategy. Just ridiculous, stubborn persistence. A murmur ran through the assembly. Several delegates seemed almost offended by the simplicity of it. Queen Valera raised one of her 4 arms, requesting permission to speak. The chamber fell silent. The delegates asked how humans achieved what you could not, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I will tell you. They did not achieve anything. They did not conquer us with superior strategy or technology. They did not manipulate or deceive. They simply refused to know when to quit." She turned slightly to look at Taemin, who was attempting to blend into the background. "Humans are foolish. They are stubborn. They are emotionally chaotic. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They persist long past the point of reason. Taman made a face that suggested he wasn't sure if he was being complimented or insulted. But they are also impossibly hopeful, Valera continued. This human stood at my border day after day, knowing I would not answer. He rebuilt his station knowing I would destroy it again. He fought his own species to defend mine. He learned our songs badly but learned them anyway. He did all of this not because it made strategic sense, but because he believed connection was worth fighting for. She addressed the full assembly now. We isolated ourselves because we were betrayed, because trust led to exploitation and pain. We decided the galaxy was dangerous, and we were safer alone. We were not entirely wrong. The galaxy can be cruel. But we were not entirely right either. Valera's voice softened. This human would not let me hide. He would not let me give up on connection. Every time I pushed him away, he returned. Not with anger or judgment, but with patience and stubbornness in equal measure. Perhaps we all needed that reminder. That isolation may feel safe, but it is its own kind of death. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates seemed moved, others skeptical, but all were listening. Later, after the formal sessions ended, Valera found Taman on an observation deck, staring out at the stars. The station orbited a neutral world, and the view was spectacular. You did well today, she said, joining him. I mostly stood there trying not to fall over, Taman replied. You were the one who spoke beautifully. I spoke truthfully. There's a difference. She was quiet for a moment. I wanted to thank you properly. Away from the politics and speeches. For what? For being insufferably persistent. For not giving up even when I gave you every reason to. For showing me that courage is not the absence of fear, but continuing despite it. Tamin smiled. I was terrified most of the time, if that helps. It does, actually. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching stars drift past. Finally, Taman's communication device chimed. He checked it and sighed. Problem? Valera asked. New assignment. There's another isolated species. The Krell hegemony. They've been alone for 200 years. They're apparently extremely violent and paranoid about outsiders. The Council wants to know if human diplomatic methods might work again. 200 years is a long time to be alone. Yeah. Taman studied the data on his device. They've destroyed every probe sent into their space. They attack on sight. No communication attempts have succeeded even briefly. This is going to be much harder than the Kashari situation. So, what will you do? Taman grinned. Show up every day until they get tired of shooting at me, I guess. Worked before. Valera made a sound that might have been a laugh. Impossible, human. You are going to either save this galaxy or drive us all completely insane. Why not both? Taman said cheerfully. Before he left the observation deck, Valera called after him. Taman, when you make contact with the Krell, tell them something for me. What's that? Tell them that being afraid of connection does not make them weak. Tell them that choosing to trust again after betrayal is the hardest thing in the universe. And tell them that there are humans who will stand at their borders every single day, as annoying and persistent as dawn itself, until they are ready to try. Taman's smile was genuine and warm. I'll tell them, though I'll probably phrase it better. You had better. I have a reputation to maintain. As Taman left to begin his next impossible mission, Valera remained at the observation window. Somewhere out there, the Krell hegemony was hiding in isolation, convinced they were safer alone. They had no idea what was coming for them. A single human with more stubbornness than sense, more hope than strategy, and an absolute refusal to accept that some distances were too far to bridge. The galaxy, Valera reflected, was about to get much more interesting. And loud, definitely loud. Humans were never quiet about anything. But maybe that was exactly what the silent, lonely corners of space needed. Someone too stubborn to accept silence as a final answer. Someone who would keep knocking on closed doors until those inside remembered they had the option to open them. She touched the window with one clawed hand, her reflection staring back at her. 6 months ago, she would never have believed she would be here, standing in a council station representing her people in galactic affairs, calling a human her friend. But then, 6 months ago, she had not yet met someone foolish enough to think one person's persistence could change the universe. Turned out, sometimes foolishness and courage looked exactly the same dot, and sometimes that made all the difference.